we must revisit the topic of the Federation repeatedly. In fact, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's response to Motorsport United Kingdom arrives, which leaves many questions open. In fact, last month, David Richards, president of Motorsport United Kingdom, had threatened legal action against the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. In today's video, we need to delve into this situation in detail. Let's talk about how the teams are prepared for Bahrain. Let's look at the statements in Ferrari, the statements of James Ellison, who also talks about McLaren. Let's discuss Red Bull and the 2026 engines. Before we start, if you like the videos on the channel, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you support the work I do. Thank you for the comments. Let's start the video now. Last month, David Richards, chairman of Motorsport United Kingdom, had threatened legal action against the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, harshly criticizing the management of President Mohammed bin Sulayem and raising serious doubts about the management of the organization. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's response came on April 7th, however, it appeared evasive and did not dispel the doubts. It all started when Richards refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement, called Non-Disclosure Agreement Required to Attend a World Motorsport Council meeting. Shortly after, he wrote a letter to the members of Motorsport United Kingdom, published in the official March magazine, in which he expressed strong criticism of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile leadership and threatened legal action if his concerns were not addressed. In the letter, Richards described the non-disclosure agreement as a gag order not provided for in the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile statutes and criticized the increasing concentration of power in the hands of President bin Sulayem. He also pointed out an increasing climate of opacity with numerous resignations and dismissals among the organization's leadership. In addition to changes in the review and ethics committees that have strengthened the direct control of the president.
The reply.
The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's response, signed by General Manager Alberto Villarreal, was published early in the week, inviting Richards to share it on Motorsport United Kingdom's official channels. Villarreal defended the use of NDAs as a common practice to protect confidential information and called Richards' reluctance incomprehensible, who did not comply, especially in light of the repeated leaks from the council. In fact, Villarreal wrote, such agreements are an integral part of the best practices of any significant organization. To define them as gagging orders is misleading, and in the second part of the letter, the tone becomes more celebratory. The results achieved by bin Sulayem are praised, including the improvement of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile accounts from a deficit of 24 million in 2021 to a projected surplus of 2.2 million in 2024, but without ever addressing the issues raised by Richards. In a note published on Wednesday, Richards criticized the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's response for its lack of substantial content. I agree with Richards on this. It's disappointing to note how the real concerns expressed by me and others have been ignored. The response does not address the heart of the problems. These are Richards' statements that I fully agree with. While reiterating his willingness to engage, Richards pointed out how other parties involved have already obtained changes to the agreements in question. Unlike him, he finally added that he hopes in a direct meeting with bin Sulayem, scheduled in Bahrain during the race weekend, to address the issue in a constructive way. Although the president's agenda is already packed with commitments, including the delicate issue of the new Concord Pact, we will see if there will also be this fateful meeting between Richards and bin Sulayem. Before continuing, however, you know that I talk about cars on my other social media. And before buying a used car, do you know how many stories it could hide? It might seem perfect, but it could also have a bit of a shady past. That's why you should always do a check with Car Vertical, sponsor of my channel. With Car Vertical, you just need to enter the license plate or chassis number. And on their website, in a few seconds, you will have a detailed report of the car with all its history. Want to know if the car has been in an accident, stolen, or maybe the odometer has been tampered with. Car Vertical reveals everything to you. For example, look at this car, it had a bad accident, and the damage was so severe that they had to replace half of the bodywork. Be careful because these details save you time and money. Don't get ripped off. Protect your investment with Car Vertical and find out everything there is to know about the used car you want to buy. I also used it to buy my car. Plus, by using the code RASTRO20, you get a 20% discount on every report. Check it out now on Car Vertical and enter the code RASTRO20 for an additional discount. You're going to save a lot of money by doing a check first rather than having to intervene later once you've bought the car. This allows you to know the vehicle's full history. So please, use the code RASTRO20 to get a discount on the report and know the detailed history of the car you want to buy. I'll leave more information in the description. With that said, let's get back to us. The real problem with the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile right now is that it is censoring the media, which cannot disclose certain news, as Motorsport United Kingdom also stated. We are all aware of how Formula One has grown since 2021 and how the management of Liberty Media, particularly in commercial agreements, has made a difference. But let's remember that Ben Sulayem is the president of Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, not Liberty Media. The federation should focus on enforcing the sport's rules rather than the success that comes with it, as these are two distinct matters. The technical regulations and sports success are intertwined, but Formula One's success can't be solely attributed to Ben Sulayem. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile has been involved in several scandals, including the December 2021 Abu Dhabi incident and other ambiguous situations where regulations were unclear. We have seen the flexible funds, but also in the more recent past last year, the flexible rear wing of McLaren. Many situations where the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile did not intervene properly. Furthermore, there is a threat of censorship imposed by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, both in the media and on the drivers. And on this, in my opinion, we all agree that it is bad for the sport. But Ben Sulayem is also under pressure on another issue. In fact, the president of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile will finally be present at his first Grand Prix of the season in Bahrain. But waiting for him will not only be roaring engines, he will indeed have to face the growing pressures related to the Pact of the Concorde, the fundamental agreement that regulates and manages the economy of Formula One. During his absence due to the observance of Ramadan, the team signed a new commercial agreement with Liberty Media, leaving the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile still out of the agreement. The Concorde Agreement is a three-party contract between Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile teams and Liberty Media that outlines the rules, from prize distribution to sport management. The current agreement will expire at the end of 2025, and Liberty Media has already announced the agreement with all the teams, including Cadillac, which will debut in 2026. The teams have signed the Concorde Agreement 2026, ensuring a solid economic base for the future of Formula One. According to some paddock sources, this is what Liberty Media has declared. The teams are signing took the federation by surprise. In fact, Ben Sulayem expected more resistance from them, and he was counting on a longer negotiation to obtain more favorable economic conditions for his own organization. So there are requests to the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile from one side. Ben Sulayem has repeatedly stressed the rising costs incurred by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile for managing races, particularly with the calendar expanding to 24 GPs, leading to tension with Liberty Media. However, I feel obliged to also add that the federation has also increased the costs of various fines as an excuse to manage internal costs. Among the priorities on Ben Sulayem's agenda is to strengthen the training of commissioners and create a stable body of professional stewards. For this reason, he is asking for a larger financial quota, but his request risks straining relations with Liberty Media and the teams that want to close the deal without further delays. In short, Ben Sulayem is aiming for his second term as president of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, and therefore will have to handle very delicate situations. He will have to try not to upset Liberty Media and not disappoint the fans, because he wants to be renewed in his mandate, even though, frankly, Ben Sulayem is not exactly very popular. And so he will find himself in the heart of tensions just as one of the most delicate weekends of the year begins. If he does not publicly clarify the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's position on the new Concorde Pact, he risks exacerbating the institutional clash and further compromising the already fragile balances among the sport's top leaders. From my point of view, Ben Sulayem's renewal is not as certain as it seems. There is a lot of pressure from both Liberty Media and Formula One management itself, and the teams are also not very happy with his management. That's why Ben Sulayem has tried to bring hot topics to the fans, like for example the V10 engines with kinetic energy recovery system, or even the fact of bringing new engine manufacturers into Formula One to try to regain the consensus lost in these years due to poor management of the federation from various perspectives, not just technically, but especially in terms of communication. But let's now hear the statements from the various teams in Bahrain. Vasseur said that in Bahrain we will really understand how much we have grown. In fact, Ferrari returns to Sakir with a clear objective, to verify the progress made compared to the preseason tests. After the start of complicated championship, the SF25 has shown obvious limits and the need for concrete updates. Bahrain is the ideal test bench to measure how much we have improved in managing the single-seater compared to a month and a half ago, the Ferrari main team declared. Vasseur is under no illusions. The challenge with McLaren is currently out of reach, but the goal is clear: to find that 10th that can make a difference. We know we don't yet have the potential to fight with them, but we believe there is room for growth, especially by optimizing the balance of the car. This is what we will focus on in Sakshire, also thanks to the work coming from Maranello. The team principal does not openly mention the expected updates, particularly to the bottom, but the behind-the-scenes work continues, with the focus on extracting the maximum potential from what is already there. "We need to take care of every detail of the weekend," Vassir stated. "Gaining even just a 10th can mean overtaking some of our rivals both in qualifying and in the race. With the optimization of the setup and more efficient management of the SF25, Ferrari aims to return to being a protagonist at least in the battle for the podium, while continuing to work to close the gap with McLaren, Red Bull and Mercedes. But what are the key aspects that Ferrari wants to improve in Bahrain with the new updates?" The SF25 has faced numerous issues from winter testing to now, not reaching its expected potential. The problems include a lack of interaction between mechanics. Aerodynamics has made it difficult to exploit optimal ground heights, compromising the aerodynamic load and narrowing the setup window. The result on the track is a delay of about 3/10 of a lap from McLaren, currently the benchmark of the grid, a distance that in Formula 1 may seem minimal, but it equates to an abyss in terms of competitiveness. According to the feedback from Leclerc and Hamilton, understeer is one of the main problems of the SF25. The 7-time world champion seems to suffer from it particularly, because he has a driving style less focused on the front compared to Charles, even though they both prefer more oversteering single-seaters. But while Leclerc in Japan has experimented with a new braking technique to mitigate this problem, that of understeer, this technique will also be adopted by Hamilton starting from the Bahrain weekend. Despite the absence of official announcements, the Ferrari team should introduce a new floor with targeted modifications to the lower area in Bahrain. The goal is to shift the center of pressure to improve the stability of the aerodynamic flow, reduce understeer, and prevent the phenomenon of bottoming. In summary, the aim is to expand the car's aerodynamic map to make it more competitive in different conditions. The Bahrain circuit could play in favor of the SF25. Its stop-and-go characteristics could enhance the good traction of the single-seater, one of the few certainties that have emerged so far. However, this advantage has so far been limited by less than optimal suspension compromises. Another interesting aspect is the relationship between aerodynamic load and resistance to advancement, which in Sakhir could find a more favorable balance, contributing to improving the competitiveness of the single-seater. During the pre-season tests, the SF25 had shown good signs in the stretches between Turn 1 and Turn 4 and between Turn 7 and 10. However, the fast sections in the central sector, turns 11-14, remain a weak point to be addressed with greater balance. Another determining factor will be tire management, particularly of the rear axle. The tires will be stressed in traction and subject to micro-slippage, which, if not managed, can compromise grip and duration. Currently, Ferrari is not at the level of McLaren in the thermal management of the tires in Bahrain, where the temperatures will be much higher compared to the tests. Containing the surface temperature of the tires will be essential with the aim of ensuring consistent performance on long stints and full tank. The Sakhir weekend represents a real maturity test for Ferrari. The technical updates can only make a difference if accompanied by a correct implementation. And if the team can improve the balance and contain the tire degradation, the SF25 could finally start to express the potential that has so far remained unexpressed. In short, it's a crucial opportunity for Ferrari in a pivotal moment for the championship. But let's look in detail at a technical aspect of the SF25 and where Ferrari's engineers are working to improve the balance of the red car. This is a crucial aspect, so follow me.
Good.
One of the main problems is the weak rear of the SF25, which forces the single-seater to run with a ground clearance increased by about 0.118 inches. This costs up to 20 points of aerodynamic load and heavily penalizes the overall balance. The result is a car with a strong front, but unable to fully exploit it. The chronic understeer is the direct consequence. In Bahrain, we will see a completely revised bottom, news at the Istratore, as well as the rear wing and brake intakes, which aim to restore load to the rear and improve traction. Key element in Bahrain, a rear limited circuit. I want to remind it because it is fundamental. The rear tires are going to wear a lot, so it will be important to have the right balance and manage the rear tires. Leclerc is very confident. He said, "I know what I want from the car. We don't have enough grip yet, but I'm learning a lot." Hamilton, on the other hand, seems to be a bit behind the Monegasque, and the British driver is having difficulties, especially in medium-speed sections, where trust in the car is fundamental. Beganovic, a Ferrari Driver Academy pilot, will make his debut in FP1 alongside Hamilton. He will replace Leclerc and take part in the rookie sessions as per regulations. And Beganovic has stated, "I will do my best to help the technicians, but my focus remains on Formula 2. This is an important step for my growth, and I will try to make the most of it." He joined the Ferrari Driver Academy in 2020, and this is a great opportunity for Beganovic. Ferrari introduced an update in Bahrain during FP1, a crucial testing session. Interestingly, they used the rookie session with Beganovic running the old spec while Hamilton tests the new one. Ferrari's decision to reserve the rookie session for this race weekend may not have been ideal. Let's also hear from the other teams, especially Mercedes, which has been performing well since the start of the year with Russell's podiums in the first two races. However, they struggled more in Japan. James Ellison, technical director, has commented on the early success of the Mercedes V16. The V16 is predictable and solid, but McLaren remains ahead in tyre management. This is what technical director James Ellison said, who analyzed the team's performance in Japan. He said that the partial resurfacing of the track made tyre management complex. The smoother first sector required attention in warming up the tyres, while in the last sector there was a risk of overheating. Finding the ideal compromise was crucial. James Ellison has commented on George Russell's weekend. "We tried a more conservative outlap, but George pushed as in the previous attempt, so he lost time in turn 2. Verstappen, meanwhile, did the opposite, picking up pace in the final sector and attacking right away. Russell anticipated the pit stop because he saw the Ferrari struggling and wanted to put pressure on them. It was a sensible idea, but it didn't work out because he ended up overheating his tires. Forcing Mercedes to an early stop, Antonelli instead had a growing weekend and also set a record in the race. And he explained to Ellison that records are a consequence of strategy, but what really matters is overall management. He qualified behind Russell. Kimi made the medium tires last longer than anyone else in the race. He finished the race with a pace similar to the best, an impressive result for an 18-year-old. As for the differences in the car, the Mercedes V15 and the Mercedes V16, James Ellison is unbalanced like this. The V15 was unstable, too sensitive to wind and temperatures. We had understeer problems in slow corners and had to revolutionize the setup with every weather change, while the V16 is a predictable and solid car whether it's wet, hot, cold, windy. The car behaves well. This allows us to push more on updates and work on a stable base. Sakir, a rear-limited track that puts pressure on the rear tires. The asphalt is abrasive, it's old. We expect a lot of degradation, especially with high temperatures. While on McLaren, James Ellison said, "They are the best in thermal management, but if they make mistakes, we can play it." Red Bull and Ferrari will fight for the podium. This is an aspect that not only James Ellison has highlighted. One of the strongest points from McLaren that we have not yet fully seen at the start of the season is tyre management. In fact, the MCL39 stands out on this point according to insiders. Let's see why. Technically, Verstappen's RB21 is proven to be particularly competitive in conditions of low wear and contained temperatures. However, in scenarios where tyre management becomes central, the MCL39 clearly shows its advantage. It did so in part in Australia during the race stages with intermediates, but not in China nor in Japan where tyre wear was virtually nil. McLaren's real strength lies in their ability to manage tyres in critical conditions. And George Russell said it after Suzuka, "When we get to Bahrain or Saudi Arabia with 35 degrees, we will see the real strength of the MCL39, and this scares all of us who want to see a Ferrari come back. We want to see a fourth world championship. If the McLaren scene so far has not shown all its strengths, well, there is to be scared." McLaren took a conservative approach against Verstappen in Japan, among other things. No attempt at a decisive undercut with Norris, nor a cross strategy. The overcut option seemed promising, but there was fear that Lando could take the position on Oscar. This is what Andrea Stella said. "The real issue may be more political than technical, as there are internal balances to protect. But McLaren is not even what we have seen so far. There is hidden potential, which we will probably see in the hotter races and with more abrasive asphalt." One last thing, we also need to talk about the discussion on 2026. The Sakir weekend will feature on-track battles and a crucial confrontation between Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile Liberty Media and manufacturers. The shared fear is that only one team can gain a clear advantage, compromising the show from 2026 onwards. It could also seriously harm the worldwide popularity of Formula 1. So in a rare alignment, Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile and Liberty Media seem to be on the same wavelength today. Urgent intervention is needed. There are two main solutions on the table. First, shorten the 2026 technical regulations duration without nullifying existing investments. And second point, modify the 2026 rules in a targeted way to ensure balance and spectacle without erasing the work done so far. And all this will be important to maintain the credibility of Formula 1 intact. We'll see if they succeed and what emerges from the Bahrain discussions. Share your thoughts on the topics covered in the video. Remember to like, subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other related videos from Nastatuto. See you in the next video.